And to dig more on the main outtakes from the 42nd ASEAN Summit in Labuan Bajo, we now have Bapak Teuku Rezasyah, International Relations Expert from Pajajaran University.
Pak Reza, welcome to the studio. How are you?
Thank you very much.
How was the trip from Bandung to Jakarta this morning?
3 hours.
3 hours?
3
That's
hours.
nothing, right?
This is very special because it's the first time I get to meet him in person.
No, really?
Yes.
The honor is mine.
Yes, very nice to have you here, Pak.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. So before we start, were you attending the summit?
Well, I followed the summit from Bandung.
From Bandung, okay.
Yes.
So everything was pretty much relayed
Correct.
easily.
Correct.
All right, let's get started now. Because you are now the expert, we are very happy to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit what the major outtakes are from the 42nd Summit there in Labuan Bajo?
Well, we have witnessed 4 strong points stated by Pak Jokowi in Bahasa Indonesia. And I'm sure the ideas have been conveyed in the local languages inside ASEAN. Yeah? What we have witnessed are the output. But what we hardly aware is the capacity of Indonesia to chair this summit, the 42nd Summit. It shows the quality of Indonesian leadership to act as a spokesperson of the 10. Okay, Myanmar is not there, but what we have conveyed also represent Myanmar. And then we showed the capacity to table initiative. Earlier on, people thought, well, we'll talk about South China Sea, we'll talk about something else, but now we have put the ideas of electric vehicle and then what we call the human trafficking. And then Pak Jokowi also has made himself a successful consensus builder. Right. Because to incorporate 10 different, in this case 9 different kind of opinion, 9 national interests, it is not easy. And then also, Pak Jokowi also has conducted official meetings inside ASEAN. What we saw was the summit, but earlier on there were focus group discussion, ministerial meetings. So this is something the world needs to be aware. And if the question is it a successful summit? The answer is yes. Especially if we witness the statement issued by the president of the Philippines. He mentioned that Indonesia has set up a high standard of organizing a meeting, which is very difficult to be catch up by fellow ASEAN countries. And then if we witness also the statement made by the Singaporean Prime Minister, Lee Hsien Loong, he was the one who mentioned, oh, coming to Labuan Bajo is different than watching from the distance or watching from the TV or from the media. And then also I heard stories that Singaporean delegation, they found that their stay in Labuan Bajo should be lengthened. It was too short for them. And then agree, ASEAN has made itself an epicenter of growth, correct? Especially if we witness the fact that the ASEAN economies here, we grew up annually for 5% from year 2020 till 2022. And then we have made ourselves a credible and also a peaceful region. No more war since 1975. And then we have developed a population of 675 million. And not to mention how many out of them are the middle class or the rising middle class. And then we have also achieved, in terms of GDP, 6.4% of the global GDP has been contributed by ASEAN countries. So this is something we need to be aware, we need to appreciate. Right. And then under Indonesian chairmanship and also following the past achievements from the earlier chairmanship, we have become more confident in achieving all goals stipulated in the ASEAN Economic Community blueprint, among others, making ASEAN a single market and production base, and then making ASEAN a competitive economic region, making ASEAN an equitable economic development, and also making ASEAN fully integrated with the local economies. Yeah. So this is something need to be appreciated, and no wonder some experts in the world expect that it is time for ASEAN to receive a Nobel Prize because we have contributed to peace and stability and prosperity in this Southeast Asian region.
Yeah, so we can conclude that the summit went very smoothly and successfully, but now let's be more specific. Okay. Had ASEAN under Indonesia's chairmanship fulfilled its major aims at the summit, including responding to the ongoing domestic turmoil in Myanmar and also about Timor-Leste's ascension to the ASEAN membership.
Yes, even before we conducted this event, the world has been questioning, will you ASEAN talk about Myanmar and also Timor-Leste? And please, unlike non-ASEAN countries who are thinking on output and outcome and also detailed timetable, we in ASEAN do not think that way. For us, process is more important. So since the coup d'etat happened sometime in February 2 years ago, we had a lot of meetings inside ASEAN. And we have achieved a level of ASEAN fatigue, I think. But it doesn't mean that we are running out of ideas. So that is the job of Indonesia as the chair. We reminded, we informed, we enlightened Myanmar on the importance to stick on the 5 points consensus. They knew it. For example, end of hostilities, and then greater communication between the hostile parties, and then the ASEAN to appoint one envoy in connection also with the UN Secretary General, and the greater role of the AHA Center to deal with the peace developments inside the country. But there are ways here. In order to change, there are 3 ways. The first one is of an evolutionary way. It takes some time. We do not know, are we waiting for Godot or not? And then the second one is revolutionary way. This is something we do not want to see. And the third one is the, what you call it, evolutionary. Evolution. In this evolution, we kept dealing with Myanmar. So if we see the latest statement from Pak Jokowi, he was the one to mention we are ready to have a greater contact, a greater communication with the regime in Myanmar. Yeah? And in this case, Indonesia has a greater responsibility. First, not only we are the chair at the moment, but when Myanmar wanted to join ASEAN, we were the one who speed up all the processes through various kind of diplomatic dialogue inside and outside ASEAN, and to convince the world that it is better to have Myanmar now than witnessing our Myanmar becoming a satellite of another great country in this part of the world. So in this case, the process is there, and what we need to see is how will Indonesia deal directly with the regime in Myanmar, yeah? And then also there was a strong statement from the president, yeah, preventing outside powers to intervene in the process. This is very important. So when Pak Jokowi mentioned non-ASEAN countries to intervene, meaning he mentioned countries and also state actors and non-state actors, or maybe proxies of certain actors outside ASEAN to intervene. This is very possible. So in this case, indirectly, Pak Jokowi would like to say the issue of Myanmar is to be handled by Myanmar itself, and also ASEAN is there to help. Right. To help, yeah, to work together with Myanmar, because considering the principle of sovereignty and non-intervention in the domestic affairs, I think we know our limit. The regime in Myanmar also know their strength, but when it comes to evolutionary process of change, I think we need to stay somewhere in the middle. I think Myanmar fully understands that Indonesia is not only the founder of ASEAN. Right. Indonesia is the unofficial leader of ASEAN, or the natural leader of ASEAN. Indonesia is the biggest economy inside ASEAN. So in this case, I think when Indonesia propose ideas, I'm sure the government in Myanmar and also the people in Myanmar, they do really understand the honesty held by the Indonesians. And then with regard to Timor-Leste, I know they have around, the problem with Timor-Leste is they have been waiting for that long, yeah. And I happened to visit Timor-Leste in sometime 2014, yeah. I work in tandem with their institution called Dili Institute for Strategic and International Studies. I was aware on how serious they wanted to become part of ASEAN. Yeah. And then they believe that the golden time is today when ASEAN is being led by Indonesia. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge when it comes to the collective decision making, there is a term called consultation and consensus. In this case, all countries, all member countries needs to say yes. And once all of us say yes, then Timor-Leste could easily become ASEAN, member of ASEAN. This has happened when we incorporated Myanmar to join in, and also Vietnam to join in, and then continued with Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. Well, there are difficulties, yeah. Maybe difficulties is too strong to say, but maybe there are requirements, yeah, need to be fulfilled by the government in Timor-Leste. Among others, if we refer to the statement issued by the Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Hsien Loong, he mentioned that ASEAN has achieved very advanced degree of cooperation, not only inside ASEAN, but also outside ASEAN. Not to mention so many dialogue partners inside with countries outside ASEAN. And Lee Hsien Loong also mentioned 66 agreements which our brothers and sisters in Timor-Leste need to learn. Yeah? So the middle way is to have a roadmap. A roadmap to be understood by both, ASEAN understood and also Timor-Leste understood. So this is not aimed to put Timor-Leste into corner, no, but it was, there is some time for capacity building. There is some time for a learning process, because if we learn how Myanmar, how Brunei Darussalam joined into ASEAN, yeah, even though Brunei is rich, yeah, at the time, very rich, and also small, but there was a process when the delegation of Brunei Darussalam became part of Malaysian delegation in UN events, and also the Singaporean the top delegation, they had Bruneian members inside, so the Bruneian can learn. So in the same way with Vietnam, before joining ASEAN, Vietnam received capacity building from Singapore. So I think this is an acceptable steps, yeah, for Timor-Leste to take a roadmap. But we have to be honest as well at the same time. Timor-Leste has been waiting for that long, and we do not want to hear statements from outside ASEAN saying that it is Singapore who is preventing easy access for Timor-Leste to join in, considering Timor-Leste is rich in oil deposit, especially located somewhere at the Timor Gap. So I think time will tell, yeah, when Timor-Leste will become part of ASEAN, but we need to be honest with ourselves. It is better to have a Timor-Leste in rather than Timor-Leste being taken by countries in the South Pacific region. For example, the Melanesian Spearhead Group. Oh my God, if these things happen, it will affect the whole of ASEAN. It will destabilize Indonesia immediately.
Hopefully not. Pak Reza, great insights from you just about now about Timor-Leste and the other one too. Now we want to be a little bit more specific now, detail in the measure of Indonesia's performance so far in the 42nd ASEAN Summit. What can Indonesia do to optimize the rest of this chairmanship period?
Time is not on our side, yeah. The next summit is coming, yeah. Among others, we need to convey to the world, yeah. When we talk about the future of ASEAN, we are not only talking about South China Sea, not only talking about Myanmar, but we are also talking strategic areas under the ASEAN Economic Blueprint. For example, Singapore-Johor Riau cooperation, and then Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand growth triangle, and also Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand growth triangle. I think this is something we need to better convey, yeah? And also we need also to think on how to make ASEAN more effective and efficient in decision making, because the charter we had was signed in 2007. It's about time to revise the charter. And then also we need to think on the future complications. For example, how will the outside partners comment seeing the ongoing defense relation between some of ASEAN countries with AUKUS country and with Quad country. So But at the same time, we need to be aware, yeah, the human trafficking issues has become a very strategic. It involves Timor-Leste. It involves Myanmar at the same time. So in this case, we need to convince ourselves that when it comes to human trafficking, we need to strengthen our law inside and make ourselves a laboratory for countries inside ASEAN how to make ideas related to human trafficking being better understood. And then we need also to link ASEAN with the best ideas coming from Asia-Europe meeting and also with the G20, because we are at the center. At the moment, we are the chair of ASEAN, but also this year we will become the chair of Asia-Europe meeting, and last year we was the chair of the G20. So various kind of cooperation needs to be informed to the world, and then finally we need to make sure that by making ourselves more prosperous, making ourselves more stable, we are becoming more confident in bringing Myanmar back into ASEAN on its will, with full confidence that the best family for Myanmar is ASEAN. So I think this is something we need to convey to Myanmar and also to the world.
Pak Reza, we've been discussing about the major outtakes from the summit, but is there anything else besides that the public needs to acknowledge? Perhaps not the less important, but perhaps the less popular and not highlighted?
Well, I think it is about time for us to be confident that we have suffered a lot during the COVID-19. And during that time, the last 3 years, we worked very strong inside ASEAN. And we utilize our partners from outside ASEAN, state or non-state actors. This is something the world need to learn. And for us also, we need to be confident. We have surpassed this difficult period, and we need to record that during that time, during the very difficult time, we found that ASEAN decision-making had become very smooth. Decision-making was done very fast. And then we didn't say about what is your contribution, but what can we contribute towards ASEAN. And then we as people inside ASEAN, we believe on what our governments had advised, yeah? What to do and what not to do, for example, inside the room, outside the room, how to deal in public space, how to deal in mass transport area. I think this is something the world needs to learn. Because we do not know, maybe in the future there would be another COVID, we do not know when. Yes. But we in ASEAN, we have made the best practices here.
Very well said.
Aren't we all proud?
We are so proud to what we have done so far, especially since the COVID pandemic you just mentioned. It was really, really tough for everyone, especially Indonesia. But I think we did okay so far coming out of this pandemic, and hopefully everybody's going to stay strong and find a way to go back to normal.
Yes.
In one shape or another.
Well, we wish that we could talk on and on with you, but unfortunately, we don't have that much time. So thank you so much, Pak Reza, for today's insight. We learned so much.
Very much.
I'm
Reza,
always
thank
honored.
you again for stopping by.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. All right, take care.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that is Pak Reza from the University of Pajajaran, Bandung. And thank you for the time. And we're going to take a quick break right now. But when we return, we're going to have Hans, and he's going to deliver some economics and business updates. Stay tuned.